So
want to
are
be
you
an asshole.
that one is an asshole. That one we already know. So the thing is, sometimes I think a lot of us, especially girls, I think we're brought up to be nice, polite, friendly. That's how I was brought up. And in my report card, teachers always say, polite child, helpful, very nice. And I think sometimes when you're nice and reliable, people tend to look for you when they need help. And sometimes it happens all the time, right? So maybe being nice is not all it's cracked up to be. Sorry. Maybe nice is just a place in France. I work in a bookstore, so my references are all book references. Yeah, so when I was in school, like I said, nice child, friendly, whatever. And then I started working, and because, when you're new at work, you want to do everything because you want to learn everything. So I was very eager to help out, to whatever. And I had a colleague. He is a little person, or a person of small stature. That is the politically correct thing to say. And he's more senior than me, and he used to ask me to do a lot of stuff. And I was very happy to do it because I wanted to learn. I wanted to, the more stuff you do, the faster you get to learn, you become very independent at work. So I did that, and initially it was fine. Then I realized as I got into the groove of things that a lot of it wasn't a teaching tool. He was just pounding off his stuff to me. And I noticed he was doing it to a lot of people as well. And he sometimes made use of his physical disability, even though whatever he asked us to do had nothing to do with it. And I think he made use of the fact that most people were nice and weren't going to say no, And I got resentful. And I think I reached a tipping point, thanks to Malcolm Gladwell for that phrase. And one day he said, "Oh, can you do this for me?" And I said, "No." So I felt very liberated when I finally said no, because, And the funny thing was, after that, he didn't try to do anything. He didn't get me to do anything else that was his own work. And I think that was when I first discovered the power of no, saying no. So, still very young at the time, so saying no, why is it so difficult to say no? I think I work in retail, and I noticed that a lot of my colleagues are very uncomfortable when they have a difficult customer situation, and they tend to give in to the customer. The more noise the customer makes, the more they say yes. And I don't do that. Maybe I'm an asshole too. So, I know I am. But anyways, I've seen customers, and a lot of them, they exhibit very bullying behavior. They will come in very aggressive, and they'll just make a lot of noise. Usually, I think they take advantage of the fact that a lot of people, sometimes I don't want to generalize, but I think generally a lot of Asians don't like confrontation, and they make use of that. I've noticed it. This is my personal observations. My nicest customers and my nastiest customers tend to be Caucasians, and they're the ones who are either very effusive with their thanks, or very, very unreasonably difficult. And sometimes, a lot of times actually, I think they make use of the fact that a lot of Singaporeans may not express themselves very well, and they just talk down to them. Very unpleasant. And I'm not that kind of Asian. So I will just say, no, I'm sorry, this is not our stock policy. You want to return, we give you 2 weeks to return. You have the opportunity to browse the book before you purchase it. There is no valid reason because the book's already damaged as well. Things, really unreasonable customers. So I realize that a lot of people don't like to say no. I think they don't like confrontation. They don't know how to say it, or they don't want to be perceived as not being very nice. Working in a bookstore, you see certain sales trends. And so recently, the best-selling book, non-fiction self-help book in the past year, I'm not even kidding. It has been on our bestseller list in my bookstore and international bestseller list for months, pretty much the whole of this year. And I think a lot of people need help doing this. I was working on my presentation yesterday with another classmate for another class, and well, we finished it, so we were just sitting and I was looking at this, and she went, "Oh yeah, that's a really good book. I loved it." Okay. So a lot of people I think they need help to be able to deal with things. And another one is the courage to be disliked. 3.5 million sold across Asia. Now it's available in English, originally published in Japanese. So I think maybe people are reaching that tipping point with, all kinds of behavior, I don't know. So that's why they feel they need help with how to say no, how to be more assertive, or how to stand up to other people. But saying no to maybe people, workplace bullies, bullying customers, that's not that difficult, because these are people you probably won't see. Workplace, you just see them at work and that's it, you can leave it behind. Customers come and go, you don't need to deal with them on a regular basis. So I learned a very unpleasant way where I really had to say no to a friend. It's not so easy. You don't want to let your friends down. They're your friends, that's the reason they're your friends. You want to do things for them. So this happened actually about 10 years ago. I had a friend who was going on holiday, and she asked if I could dog sit for her while she was away. And I said, yeah, sure, I had concerns. I live alone, and she said, oh, it'll be fine, just leave the dog tethered on a long leash, it'll be fine, Okay. Then about a month before her holiday, I had gone to Sri Lanka, and I'd come back, and I came back with a swollen knee. I've been in Sri Lanka, a much younger person. And I came back with a quite swollen knee, and it was later diagnosed to be a torn meniscus, and I needed surgery. So when I found out about it, my surgery was scheduled for the same day she was due to leave. It was about 2 weeks' notice. I called her and I said, I can't do it, And what really surprised me was, she said, why? I said, I'm going to be bedridden. I will, and actually I was, like, all cast up and everything. So I said, I'm going to be bedridden. I actually would be moving in with my parents. I live alone, but I was going to move in with my parents to stay for 5 days. And I hate living with my parents because my mom and I, we're always fighting. So she said, why can't the dog move in with your parents? And I thought that was crossing the line, because that's imposing on my parents. So I said, no, my dad hates dogs, not going to happen. I'm really, really sorry to let you down, but I can't. And I thought, that was settled. About a few days later, about 5 days later, she said, okay, here's the plan. Okay, there is a plan. My parents will take the dog for 5 days, and then a mutual friend is going to bring the dog to you, and then you look after it for the rest of the time. I'm like, why can't your parents do this? Oh, they're really old, they don't have the energy to look after the dog. Like, why can't the other friend do it? Oh, she works all the time, And I felt trapped, and I somehow felt that if I said no, I would let her down. So I said yes, which turned out to be a really bad idea. The dog is, I found out, a very badly socialized dog who doesn't walk very well. I don't know if you know what I mean. It doesn't walk, it goes to every single lamppost, fire hydrant, whatever, and tries to pee. It's distracted by everything. It's a very badly socialized dog. And then one day, while walking, it encountered the neighbor's Alsatian, and Napoleon complex. Small dog thinks he can be king. Manages to wriggle out of the harness and runs after the dog, the bigger dog. And I could not stop it. I couldn't run after the dog because of my knee. But I wasn't carrying crutches because I was off my crutches at the time. And all I could do was scream. And if the owner of the Alsatian hadn't actually turned up and picked up the small dog, I think he'd be eaten up. And the owner was like, oh no, my dog is very friendly. I said, yeah, I'm not worried about like your dog. It's this dog. This dog is the problem, and your dog might eat him up. So the dog, apart from all that, about 3 days before I was due to return the dog, I found out that the dog had actually peed in several places in my home that were not obvious. For example, it peed where my laundry basket was, so it pulled underneath the basket, but you couldn't tell. and I found 5 spots, and I had to clean it immediately. With my knee, I had to bend down, sticking the knee out, and actually the whole exercise was very bad, and it set my rehab back by 3 days because I had to go back to crutches after that. I was very angry with the whole situation, and when my friend came back, I told her I'm very angry. She said, with the dog? I'm like, no, with you. Well, with the dog, with you, with myself. You shouldn't have put me in this situation. I shouldn't have said yes. I should have said no. So the short story is actually the friendship never recovered from this. And I think it was a really important lesson for me to realize. And looking back on the relationship, I realized that I had always said yes to a lot of things. The friendship was pretty much on her terms. Where to go, when to meet, what things to do, activities that she liked. So I learned to say no. So I thought that slowly I started to learn that, saying no can be very, very beneficial for your mental and physical health. Okay, so that's, I think what one of the things we need to do is kind of learn to identify the kinds of relationship that is unhealthy, and learn to say no and cut these relationships out of your life. So saying no can also be profitable if done strategically. Oh wait, I have him here. The dog, this is the actual dog. It's a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix, which is the worst of both worlds. Yeah. Okay, who hasn't heard of Facebook? So, I mean, almost everyone has a Facebook account, right? So when Facebook first started when Zuckerberg first started Facebook as a college game, I don't know if he knew the outreach it would become, the kind of outreach it would have, and what it would eventually become. But we now know, what it is. But back when it started and when Facebook started getting popular, there were a few others. I don't know if some of you are old enough to remember Friendster, MySpace.
Yes.
So, but in the midst of all these, Facebook was the one that thrived and survived. And in 2006, it was, Yahoo made a bid for it. As with all good things, everyone wants a piece of the pie. And Yahoo wanted to buy it for $1 billion US. At the time, it's kind of an unprecedented amount for a takeover at the time. And Facebook was barely 2 years old at that stage, and it had 8 to 9 million users and about 20 to 20 million in revenue. We now know today. Any idea how many users it has today? I just downloaded this week. As of the second quarter of this year, Facebook has 2,234 million active users. So I think this is discounting people with accounts but inactive ones. So when Yahoo wanted to buy Facebook over, everyone wanted to sell. The major investors in the company, the board of directors, Zuckerberg was the one who said no. And even up to 3 years after he had turned down the sale, people questioned whether that was the right decision. But with over a decade of Facebook success right now, we can say obviously he made the right decision. But not everyone would have had the gumption to stick to their guns, but Zuckerberg did, and I think it was a huge payoff. And we now know that the value that the offer that Yahoo made is over 300 times undervalued. So saying no, profitable if you have a vision and you know what you're going to do with it. But sometimes you have to make a stand when you say no, like Rosa Parks did when she said no to giving in all the time. And you make a moral stand. I don't know if any of you know this person, Shiune Sugihara. He is, in 1939, Sugihara was sent to Lithuania, where he worked at the Japanese consulate. And this was a very dark period in Europe, 1939. Nazism was on the rise, and he was faced with Jews who were fleeing German-occupied Poland at the time. So 3 times he wrote to his embassy to request permission to issue visas, and they refused. He discussed this with his wife and children, and he decided to defy his government and issue visas. He took a stand and he said no to human suffering. And he issued, he wrote visas. He wrote as many visas in one day as one would normally issue in a month. And all the way up to September 1940, when the Japanese embassy closed, he took the stationery and continued writing visas and gave them out. And even though they had no legal standing at the time, if anyone saw them, they accepted it because he had the official government seal. And so he did. And he basically said no to he came back, and he did all this with at great personal cost to himself. When he went back to Japan, he was dismissed from the Foreign Service, and he only worked menial jobs after that. And he died in 1986, and 9 years earlier he was interviewed, and he was asked why he did it. I told the Ministry of Foreign Affairs it was a matter of humanity. I did not care if I lost my job. Anyone else would have done the same thing if they were in my place. I don't think so. I don't think anyone else would have done the same thing. I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be able to do that, and not everyone has it. And because of his action, he issued more than 6,000 visas. Because of this, over 40,000 lives, an estimated 40,000 lives were saved because of what he'd done. So saying no saves lives. It can save lives. And I think no is often seen as a very negative thing. No, can't do this, can't do that. But I think no is just a tool. It is how you use it. And it's how you can use it to say no to bigotry, say no to bullying behavior. So it's not a negative word. And sometimes you need to make a moral stand by saying no.